caused the fall of the mob? Was it Pistone? Was it Giuliani? Was it Valachi? Was it Tommaso Buscetta? Was it arrogance? Was it not staying low key? Was it Joe Bonanno's book? What was it that caused the fall of the mob?
For me, mid-'80s racketeering law. When the government changed or leveled the playing field to a degree that we just couldn't keep up with it, with the racketeering law, the Bail Reform Act, you didn't get any bail, the Sentencing Reform Act, where all of a sudden they abolished parole, you're doing 85% of your time, the sentences went through the roof, the racketeering law until today, I believe it's unconstitutional. I had 3 racketeering indictments. A lot of things happened as a result of those laws, and you know, that's what put everybody away.
Was there something before that brought up the RICO? Well, like, I'm trying to go to the seed. What caused the ripple effect to get to the RICO?
You know, Patrick, years ago, before the racketeering laws, and I think Sammy will bear me out, guy gets convicted, he gets 10 years, 15 years, he makes parole, he does 7, 8, 9. Anybody can do that kind of time. Everybody did that kind of time. But when you change the playing field to where you bring in a law like the RICO Act, that's very hard to defend. To me, it's unconstitutional. To me, they're able to use, you need 2 predicate acts in the RICO Act. One has to be within the 5-year statute of limitations. The other act could be something that you did 30 years ago that you got convicted of, that you did your time for, and everything else.
RICO basically makes it a crime to have a crime business. So I can go rob a bank, that's a crime. You and I could agree to go rob a bank, that's a conspiracy. We give an extra penalty to this. But suppose we agree that for the next 20 years we're going to rob 5 banks a year. Now we've established a RICO enterprise. We've established an informal business to commit crime. Now what does that allow you to do? It allows you to put them in prison for a lot longer. But the most important thing it allows you to do is to seize their property. And the biggest problem with the Mafia now was, for a long time, Hoover ignored it. Then they started prosecuting it. But all they were doing was helping the line of succession. They'd take number 1 out, they'd take number 2 out, there'd be a little gang war, and somebody else would take over the multi-billion-dollar business, because nobody affected the numbers rackets, the fixing of boxing matches, the skim from Las Vegas, the drug trade. Nobody did anything about that.
So unconstitutional in that regard. But what happens, it was a very hard law to defend. It was very expensive to defend with the lawyers. And the amount of time that they gave out. You know, anybody could have done the amount of time that we did prior to the RICO Act. But after that, you know, you tell them guys, hey, you're doing 20, 30, 40 years, you're never getting parole. That's it. You know, that was the end of it. A lot of guys cooperated as a result of that because they say, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life in jail. You know, it goes to this whole thing of love and fear, which is a more powerful emotion. They're both powerful, but I think in the end, I disagreed with Chaz Palminteri on this in the movie. I think what happened with the government is that the fear of the government overpowered the fear that we had on the street. And as a result, a lot of guys went the other way, and you just couldn't overcome it. You couldn't overcome it.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And along with the witness protection program,
Exactly.
changing people's names, moving them, giving them money, doing a whole host of different things, it gave them a way out. And all of those names that you had mentioned, Donnie Brasco, and all of these names, it started to deteriorate in a big way. So now when guys were getting pinched, and going back to what Michael said, a lot of them are betrayed by people. So when you're being betrayed, it's easy to say, well, I'm not doing this. And now the government gave you an avenue to get out. Years ago, during the commission trial, Carmine Persico, who's a pretty fierce boss, said in the trial that we should admit there's a mafia. Because belonging to an organization, as long as you put it forward, like the Ku Klux Klan and so many other different weird organizations, it's not illegal. It's your actions that are illegal within that group. So you can be, he said, we could say that all of the old timers who are bosses and admit he's a boss, he's an underboss, he's this, but we don't do anything wrong. And we're good guys. Now you gotta prove that he did something personally, not just this RICO law that they invented and everybody can get caught up in it. They have somebody taking the stand, this is the Mafia, the boss has got to okay this hit. Even if he didn't, he sucked into it. And that was all successful. They used different equipment, bugs and tapes that were phenomenal.
Here's what I need to do. I need to break into Fat Tony's house or his social club. I need to do the same thing with R.I.C.O. I've got about 4 or 5 little things here where I got to. A lot of this work is going to be breaking in. I knew that I couldn't get this all done with just the FBI. So I said to Bill Webster, Bill, you got to go pick for me 20 guys on the national security side, the guys who were busting in on the communists. Because I used to be in charge of them too when I was associate attorney. And I did the first FISA warrants, all basically for Russian communists. I said, those guys are better than burglars. I mean, we don't have burglars in New York that are as good as them. They can get in any place. They go up sewers. He gave me 22 of them. He moved them over to the criminal side. And there was a lot of stuff to put that case together. But they were the key to it. I mean, we got into Fat Tony's social club for 9 months. It was like a studio. It was like a recording studio. And consider we're talking about 1983 technology. Imagine what we could do today.
What made that legal? Meaning prior to the RICO laws, what Blakey wrote in 70, would that have been legal to do prior to that?
Nah, there was a period of time when it would have been done illegally, but it wasn't illegal.
Got it.
They just did it.
So was there a part of
Then there was a period of time they realized, stop it. We can't do surveillance without warrants. So then they set up a law. If you want to put a bug in a house, if you want to put a camera in a house, the whole big wiretapping bugging statute that requires you to show probable cause, go to a judge, the judge has to approve it, only lasts for 1 month. You got to go back to the judge and show him that you're getting evidence and that you're using it appropriately. You're not just spying on the guy. It was a very, very disciplined statute, which is what got me so angry with the FISA stuff that went on, because it was like totally inconsistent with the thousands of hours we used to work on this to make sure it was just perfect. Because if you made a mistake, they throw the whole thing out. There goes a $4 million investment and all this boom because you had his wife on the phone too long.
All of this stuff combined changed the whole thing. Now, the bosses didn't agree with Carmine R.I.C.O. Every single one of them said no.
Why?
We will not admit, that's part of our oath, that we will not admit that there's a mafia, no matter what.
And not only that, it was such a bad strategy because every juror, I mean, you had to be living under a rock if you didn't have a preconceived notion of what the mafia was all about. You hear mafia, you hear Al Capone, you hear all bad names, and you know it's a criminal organization, just a normal guy. So they didn't understand that, okay, he just admitted that he was in the mafia, he must be a criminal.
Right.
That had to be in their heads right off the bat. So it was a bad
You
strategy.
were guilty,
However,
all those movies, Godfather, Goodfellas, everybody knows there's a mafia. So when you went in, you were half dead.
But what I was told, Sammy, what I heard after was that the tapes were so bad that there was no way they could have got around saying that there was no mafia. They had to admit to the existence of the mafia.
Right.
I think it was the first time in a trial, especially of that magnitude, that guys ever admitted there is a mafia. I mean, other than, Valachi and people that could understand and said it, but defendants, I don't think it ever happened before. They admitted that there was a mafia.
What happened there is that we were on the street, me, Frankie Chico was alive, and we went to the Genovese family. Messages came out. They want to admit. And all the messages went back and said no. Everybody said no. Now what happened is Carmine R.I.C.O. didn't take that no. He got his lawyer, honestly, and told his lawyer to admit it in court. The lawyer admitted it on closing arguments, I think it was, and they had a fit. He tried to blame the lawyer. They grabbed this lawyer on the street, put a couple of guns to his head, and he admitted that Carmine Persico told him to do it. Later on, Wild Bill, when the war was on, the Colombo War, he said, "Why are we fighting over him? He's a rat." He made the lawyer admit. Wild Bill got killed because of that.